Welcome to the Pastor and Intern podcast with Pastor Eric Dyer, Intern Will Emery, and Content Lead Kayla Popwell. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about biblical membership, church membership. So, Eric, why don't you define that for us as we get ready to dive in?
Okay, so we've all agreed that this is what we think about church membership, right? Like, you're not leaving me out to dry.
Yeah,
I've told you beforehand. Okay, good.
Right.
This is how we define it. A decision to become invested in a body of local believers for the goal of fellowship, ministry, and the participation of the ordinances.
Good job.
So we're all good with that, right? We didn't get that out of a book.
No.
I'm sure someone said it the exact same way before, but
probably a little bit
think.
better, but
okay,
it's there.
Okay, good. So when we say church membership, we're not talking about a gym membership, right? Like, we're not talking about, hey, here's my $20 a month, give me a card,
right?
So I can walk in anytime in a 24-hour span, right? Okay, just making sure.
Right.
We're not talking about a country club membership, right?
No.
Like, I don't even know that I'm in a bracket of finances
think
that
I
I
am
can be in a country club.
No,
okay, good. Okay, good. So a church isn't like that, right?
No.
Okay, so we've kind of defined the terms here, and I think it's important, and if you're a listener to this podcast, you know this already, we like to have a scriptural basis for every single thing that we talk about because we feel like it is the most important thing. So basically, we're going to go into a time where we're talking about each of a scripture that we've chosen to kind of dive into what church membership really is. And honestly, we can't hit them all because this podcast would be too long. But I think people have this misconception in their mind that church membership is just made up by a bunch of old Baptists that want your money and your commitment. And I just kind of want to put that to bed, as that's not what's happening. Church membership is an actual scriptural thing that is required of you and is something that you should do. But the reality is that, like other concepts in Scripture, there's not a line that says you are to be a church member.
That's exactly what I was about to ask. Yeah.
You are supposed to come forward and sign a card and be brought up after the invitation, and everyone's supposed to shake your hand after the service. Like, that's not
right.
It's not in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not what's happened. I don't think any of that is wrong per se. But at the end of the day, I think that's a good way to do it. Now, I'm a Baptist, so I'm incredibly biased in that regard. But I think that church membership is something that is scriptural. You know, for instance, the concept of the Trinity is in the Bible, but the word Trinity is not.
Right.
So to say that just because it's not explicitly mentioned in the Bible that it's not in the Bible is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or when people say, well, Jesus didn't talk about this issue or that issue. It's like, well, okay, well, just because he didn't talk about this specific issue does not mean that he doesn't have an opinion about it based on his other opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Or based on Paul's opinion, right? Like, why is Paul's opinion any less valid than Jesus' opinion? So anyway, and I know I'm kind of getting off track here, but I just want to make it plainly clear that Scripture talks about things that may not be as well defined as we'd like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just to be clear. Okay. So we decided as a group to take different passages and talk about them. Okay. So obviously I went overboard on this issue. I just did. Okay. Because I get excited about church membership because I'm an old fuddy-duddy. So I'm an old man. So I get excited about church membership. So I'm going to basically be in 1 Corinthians. So when you think about 1 Corinthians, you probably think about this letter that's weird. And it's talking about a bunch of what feels like isolated issues to a certain church. Now, 1 Corinthians in all actual reality is 2 Corinthians. It's the second letter to the Corinthian church. Yeah, mind blown, right? But we call it 1 Corinthians because we don't have the first letter to the Corinthians. We just have this one and the next one, right? And I'm not going to go into 2 Corinthians, but 1 Corinthians, that's where we're at. So if you think about 1 Corinthians as an idea, 1 Corinthians is literally a letter written to a specific church based on specific problems with specific solutions. Okay, did you like what I did there? That was very pastoral.
That was good.
Okay, good. So I'm basically going to be in 1 Corinthians 12 through 14. I'm not going to read it all, so don't turn the podcast off. And I'm going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, kind of near the end of what we're going to talk about here. So if you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 12, he, as in Paul, goes into this whole ordeal about spiritual gifts. Okay, so he's talking about, hey, every single person in the church vaguely the church, has a spiritual gift, if not more than one. So you each have a different thing. So then right after that, he goes into the diversity of the body. So I'll start in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12. I'm not going to read all of this, but here's what it says. It says, "For just as the body is one and has many parts, and all the parts of that body, though are many, are one body, so also is Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we were all given to one Spirit to drink. Indeed, the body is not one part, but many." And he goes on, and he talks about how, a foot should not say that I'm not a hand, so I don't want to be part of the body. Or, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong in the body. Things like that. I really want to focus on verses 25 through 27, though, because I feel like they're really important. So he says this, so because of all this, so that there would be no division in the body, but that the members would have the same concern for each other. So if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. And if one member is honored, all the members are rejoiced with it. Now you are the body of Christ and individual members of it. So what's interesting with that is that he's talking about how, for instance, if I hurt as a part of First Baptist Church, Will hurts, right? Because we're of one body.
Yeah.
The reality is that if Will is in a church in sub-Saharan Africa and I hurt, Will doesn't hurt. Will doesn't know that I exist.
Yeah.
Will doesn't know my problems. Will doesn't know. So it seems to suggest that Will and I are in the same location.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to suggest that we are in a singular church. We're in one church. Because Paul makes distinctions, so if you were to read in Ephesians or Colossians, you would know that Paul thinks that there is one universal church body, right? There's a universal church. But in this area, he's talking about a specific church, right? That's who the letter's to. And then he suggests that we share each other's burdens and our successes with one another. But if Will is somewhere else in the world going to a different church, he has no idea about my successes. He has no idea about my pains. He doesn't. Now, we live in a world where I could call Will, but the reality is that if I don't, he has no idea. He has no idea what I'm going through. So then he goes on, he talks about love, and it's that famous, love is patient, love is kind type thing, which I think is interesting, and I never thought about it before, reading that in the backdrop of how to be a church member. Then he goes in talking about love, which is interesting. And then, so I'm going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 14. I'm going to start in verse 26. It says, "What then, brothers and sisters, when you come together, each one has a hymn, a teaching, a revelation, another tongue, or an interpretation. Everything is to be done for building up." He goes on to talk about tongues and prophecy and all that stuff. And then he says in verse, 33, says, "As in all the churches of the saints," he talks about this problem that they're having with women in the church and all that. So he talks about these certain problems with this church, Now, people like to take these out of context because this is the famous verse where it says women should be quiet in church. So, Kayla, don't hate me for mentioning that verse, but that's what it says. And then it says people who speak in tongues, you need to have someone who interprets for you, all that stuff. And then in verse 40, it's interesting. He says, "But everything is to be done decently and in order."
Mm-hmm.
So it even seems as though these people who are coming together have this togetherness about it. Does that make sense? Like this, hey, we're together. We're part of the same body together. We are dealing with these problems together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the backdrop of that, do you think that, and I'm asking you two personally, I'm not asking the audience per se, but I'm asking you two, does that seem as though it's a good enough argument for church membership?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, well, why do you think that?
I just think I think it seems very clear. I go back to like what you said, kind of in the beginning of the podcast. Are we talking about gym membership? Are we talking about a country club membership? And obviously Paul's not talking about that here, right? If we look back at 1 Corinthians 14:26, that into that verse, whenever you come together, so you're coming together, you're doing something, and each one has a hymn, a teaching, revelation, other tongue, or interpretation. Everything is to be done for building up. So we see some kind of community here, some kind of people are coming together, and each one has a different role. And if you go back to I I just agree. I think I think it shows that you're coming together to do something, and that's probably to be a part of the church.
Kayla, what do you think?
Well, I think whenever it talks about the body,
Mm-hmm.
whenever it keeps on mentioning the body, and then like you said, how whenever one of you hurts, the other one hurts too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like how you put that. You can't really hurt for someone that you don't know, so that obviously would mean that you're together.
Right.
Like you're in some type of body together.
Right. And what's interesting is we literally get the word member, you know how we say church member, from this text. Because you have members of your body. Like your finger is a member of your body. It is literally connected to your body. It is a member of your body. And that's where we get this term member from. We don't get any other descriptive word for what it means to be a member of a church, but from your body parts, which I think is so interesting. You know, I never thought about that before until last night because I'm doing some research, watching some videos, reading some articles or whatever, and they're like, literally your arm is a member of your body. And if you were to not have your arm, you would be severely handicapped, right? Like you couldn't do all the things that you do. But that you have that member, you can. And Paul makes that same argument that you could, because the reality is we know, you know, we're intelligent enough to know that if you lost your pinky toe on your foot, you know, it's little, it's kind of weird looking, it's kind of out there in the middle of nowhere. But if you were to lose it, you would have to relearn how to walk without that toe, right? It's the same concept. Like we need every single individual part of our body, and I think it's more than just a universal sense, but a more compact sense. So we're on agreement there, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then we have this interesting little passage, which is it's really awkward, honestly. Like it's really weird.
Yeah.
But Paul talks about it. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, I'm just going to read you this circumstance. Okay. Okay. So 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1. It is actually reported that there is sexual immorality among you, and the kind of sexual immorality that is not even tolerated among the Gentiles. A man is sleeping with his father's wife, and you are arrogant. Shouldn't you be filled with grief and remove from your congregation the one who did this? Even though I am absent in the body, I am present in spirit, as one who is present with you in this way. I have already pronounced judgment on the one who has been doing such a thing. When you are assembled in the name of our Lord Jesus, and I am with you in spirit, with the power of our Lord Jesus, hand the one over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, so that his spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord. Your boasting is not good. Don't you know that a little leaven leavens the whole batch of dough? Clean out the old leaven, so that you may be a new unleavened batch, as indeed you are. For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us observe the feast, not with old leaven, or with the leaven of malice and evil, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So, in our culture, in our Christian culture, we like to be willy-nilly with our church membership. We like to not be so committed. We like our independence. It's an American thing, right? Like we are independent. I'm my own person.
I can do my own thing.
I can do my own thing. I'm my own person, right? I need some elbow room, as I heard last night in the quote. Like I need room for myself. I need to pull myself up, right? So if that's true, and I just go to a church because I like it, or it's just a place for me or whatever, but I don't want to become a member, well, then how does church discipline work? Because it seems as though these people that are doing this nasty thing, this guy and his mother-in-law having this relationship, like, what if they weren't members? Then they'd be like, well, that's just a place I attend, right? Like, there's no conflict there. There's no interest there. But if they're members and they're committed members of the church, and you say you can't come back until this is fixed, that hurts. Yeah. Right? That means something. It's not casual. There's nothing casual about this whole experience. There's nothing willy-nilly. There's no commitment going on here. It really feels like there is a problem. And Paul says this is how you fix the problem. You excommunicate that person, you know? And we're not going to go into all the details of these first 8 verses because it gets a little complicated. It needs a lot of explanation. But if there's no commitment in church membership, then church discipline can't work. And I think that's a reason why a lot of churches don't do church discipline, is because would it matter? Do we take church seriously? Do we take being a member of a body seriously? I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts about that?
I just like, on the most basic sense of church membership, I like Paul's, how he phrases in verse 2, and you are arrogant, shouldn't you be filled with grief and remove from your congregation the one who did this? So like you said, they're saying, hey, you need to get rid of this guy. He needs to be out. So for you to remove somebody means that they had to be in it in the first place.
Yes.
They had to be a part of it, not just that they attended, not just that they were there. You don't remove somebody from your sports team if they're just a fan.
Right.
Right? You're removing them from your sports team. They're a part of the team.
Right.
And I just like how he phrases that there. You're removing, he's in it, he's joined, he's a part of something, he's a part of, and they even use the word congregation, he's a part of the congregation, and you're removing him from that.
And that makes us uncomfortable, right?
Right.
Like, that's like, whoa there. What do you mean? Because the reality is, in most of our churches, when something like this happens, we don't do anything about it.
Well, I feel like, too, a lot of churches struggle with doing something about, like, say, like that situation, because if they're not committed and they don't take their church membership seriously, then they're probably going to be like, well, like, I don't even come to church hardly. Like, why are you saying something to me about this? Or it's hard to practice church discipline whenever you take church membership casually.
Well, and I wonder if the problem is not that we don't understand church discipline. I wonder if the root of the problem is that we don't understand church membership.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's where the problem begins, because if we truly understood what it means to be a member of a church or church membership, then I think church discipline kind of comes behind that, because you're held accountable by all the other members in the body.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
And like, I hear people say all the time, well, the Lord knows my heart, so like I don't have to go to church every Sunday. Well, that's not really taking your church membership seriously, and you need that community.
Right. And again, like, I feel like we have to say this every time, but we're not trying to be legalistic, by the book type people, but we're seriously looking at the scriptures and saying, what does this require of me? And because the reality is that if your church has never practiced church discipline, and then you all of a sudden are like, all right, I'm excommunicating this person because they're having a relationship with their stepmom or whatever, then it's going to be like, well, wait a minute. Well, what about all those other times when everyone else got away with everything?
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like if you want to instill church membership, it's something that you have to give them to make them understand what it is.
yeah. Right.
And I feel like we're scared of it because we know in our mind, subconsciously, we're American people. We like our independence, obviously, like we celebrate Independence Day. We like to be our own person, pull our own, like the American dream, pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, be our own person, we need our elbow room or whatever. And if we start telling people, hey, what this requires of you is commitment, it requires of you to be serious about being a member of the local body of ministry, that'll turn people off. Like, people will be like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm out. Like, I'll go to some church that doesn't require anything of me or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's part of me as a pastor that says, I don't like that because I don't want anybody to leave, because that's just who I am. I don't want anybody to leave. But then there's the other part of me that's like, but I trust God enough that He's faithful enough to bring the people here that should be here. Right? Like, is that a radical concept? Like, is that too far? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. So anyway, I kind of looked at these whole passages as an idea of, okay, this is what Paul had in mind when the church was being instituted, because the church is fairly young still. Like, it's not even 100 years old. It's not 50 years old. Like, the church isn't this new concept. And so anyway, I kind of wanted to define those terms because we met together and I kind of go overboard on what I do, and then I saw what y'all were doing, and so I kind of wanted you guys to supplement this idea. So, Will, which scripture do you have?
Yeah, well, and I agree, and that's really all mine's going to do is just kind of, I think that was great passages you picked, and that should show us church membership. So I'm just in Hebrews 13, verse 17. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 17. And I'll just kind of read it. We'll stop. And so it says, obey your leaders and submit to them. So whoever the author of Hebrews is writing, and he's saying, okay, obey these people and submit to them. This could mean rulers. This may mean more specifically in a body of believers. And submit to them, since they keep watch over your souls as those who will give an account. So that they can do this with joy and not with grief, for that would be unprofitable for you. Now, I think we should ask kind of two questions here. Number one, who should I submit to? Right? Why? Who am I? I'm submitting to somebody. Right? I'm submitting to leaders. I'm submitting to some kind of authority.
Mm-hmm.
But what's specific about these leaders is that they're going to give an account for something.
Yes.
For me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which I think shows us more of I'm submitting to somebody and they're giving an account for me. So I think that kind of shows us some kind of idea of church membership. I'm giving in, I'm submitting to, and they're giving an account for me. So it's some kind of joining union together.
Right.
That's a little far fetched, but there that is. So then let's go to Acts 2. Okay, Acts chapter 2.
Can I stop you real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so what I also like to do is to take what scriptures y'all are using and look at it for myself and say, okay, what can I get out of this? What can I do or whatever? But
great.
In verse 7 in chapter 13, have you read that one?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, it says this right here. It says, remember your leaders who have spoken God's word to you, as you carefully observe the outcome of their lives and imitate their faith.
Right.
So then it makes it clear.
Right.
This is who the leaders are. And not only are you to obey them, this is why you obey them, is because of the outcome of their lives and to imitate their faith.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes, and this is why they're accountable, because if my life as a leader in the church turns out to be nothing, all a lie or whatever, and people have been following that, I'm going to be accountable for that. And then, if my faith is fake, people will be imitating a fake faith, and then I will be held accountable for that.
Right.
And so I think, again, this points to, hey, they're a member of something, that there's a leader of said something, and you need to be listening to them, obeying them, and imitating them in everything that you do. And I think that, and that's why I really liked what you picked, is because of these leaders are people that Paul or Luke or whoever wrote Hebrews, they put stock in. Like this is someone that they probably know.
Yeah.
And they're like, you need to listen to this person because they're important and their faith is real, and you don't need to worry about if their faith's real or not, because God's going to judge them based upon their faith and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, these people, which this person probably knew, are worth following.
Right.
So I just wanted to kind of
I agree.
I'm
glad you did. So then let's look at Acts chapter 2, right? So we get to Acts chapter 2, verse 41 specifically. And so we're right after Peter's sermon. Peter gives this great sermon, talks about the resurrection, talks about all these different things, quotes the Old Testament scripture. He gives this great sermon. And then we see this kind of Peter's invitation, right? He says, okay, repent and be baptized, each one of you, in the name for the forgiveness of your sins. You receive the gift of the Holy Spirit, right? So we have this sermon, and then we have this invitation, and then we get to verse 41. Let's read verse 41. So those who accepted his message were baptized. So they did what Peter said, and that day about 3,000 people were added to them. So these people are added to something. Now, what I find interesting is look at the next. You can look in even the title I have in my Bible says a generous and growing church.
Mm-hmm.
So these people, which assumes, infers, at least in my mind, that these people, these 3,000 people, were added to them. They're Christians, and they're added to a church because they go in to talk about a growing and a generous church. They're added to them.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. Eric has a stipulation here, so go ahead.
No, I don't. I really don't. No. I'm reading what you're saying, and I'm really liking what you're saying, because the next verse says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, the fellowship, and the breaking of bread and prayer. And Brother Bill brought this up yesterday.
He did.
He said they devoted themselves.
Yep.
So it's not casual.
No.
This isn't something they just show up to.
Yeah, it's not like a conference and they just come back every year. And
right. It's like, I'm thinking about going to the country club today. You want to go?
Right.
Like, no, that's not what this is. It almost feels as though that this is what they would rather be doing all the time.
Right.
This is where they're placing the majority of their time, and less of, okay, well, this just has some of my time. That's what it really seems like. That's what it really seems like. Because he talks about, I don't know if it's this one, but he talks about how they, they meet in their houses.
Well, and exactly. And I mean, if you just look through, let's just start at verse 42. So they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. But these are things you normally do. You're doing these things with people a lot of the times.
Right.
Verse 43, everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and signs were being performed through the apostles. Now, right here, verse 44, now all the believers were together, so they're all together, and held all things in common. They sold all their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all as any had need. Every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple. Again, we see this idea of a church meeting together in the temple, and broke bread from house to house. They ate their food with joyful and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Every day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved.
So clearly it's a group of people.
Yeah, clearly.
Right?
They're all doing these things. And I really like, because you could read verse 41 and say, okay, well, and that day about 3,000 people were added to them. Well, that just means that they're Christians now. They're just a part of the... But if you look at the end of verse 47, it says, praising God and enjoying the favor for all the people. Every day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that these are just Christians and there's just 1,000 million of us that this guy's talking about. That number didn't make sense. But it's as if these people are being saved. Now they're being added to the number.
Right.
So they're coming together as
so it
a
seems
body
as
of believers.
though, so they're in a local place, right? They're not talking about all over the world.
Right.
You know, they're not talking about this universal church. They're talking about this church.
Right.
Right? This first church. And what I also find humorous is that they met every day, and we struggle to meet one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Let
did
alone
this all
2
the
days.
time.
Like,
Right.
good Lord, how many times do you want me at church? You know, like I can't be there every day. Well, the reality is that they were.
Yeah.
You know, now their church looks a little different than our church
right.
looks like. Not that that's an excuse, but it's just different. It's just different.
Right.
All right, Kayla, what do you got?
Okay, let me get my verses here. The verse that I chose was Acts 4:32, and it says, "Now the entire group of those who believed were in one heart and mind, and no one claimed that any of his possessions was his own, but instead they held everything in common." And I like this verse because it says the entire group of those who believed. So I would think that would represent the church.
Mm-hmm.
Of being a member of a church, were of one heart and mind, so you believed in the same God.
Mm-hmm.
And no one claimed that any of his possessions was his own, but instead they held everything in common. So I feel like if you believe in the Lord, then you would have most things in common, and that's where they kind of pull that from.
Mm-hmm. So like when you say of one heart and mind, do you mean that we all like the same type of music?
No.
Okay. When you say one heart, one mind, that we like the same type of preaching?
No.
Okay. So basically, when you say we believe in one heart and one mind, you're saying that we believe in the same Lord and the same gospel, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that begs the question, you know, do all of these trivial things really matter when it comes to where you're going to church? And the reality is no, right? Like these people, now granted, these people didn't have like 7 churches on the same road to choose from, but at the same time, you know, it's not like they were like, well, you know what, I'd rather be sitting in a chair than a pew, you know, like that was not even on the forefront of their mind. They're thinking these are people that are like me, and I want to be with those people. Because we've talked about it before on the podcast. We just want to be around people that we're like.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do. And how much, and if that's true, so if I want to be around people that are like me, how much more true should it be in my life to be around people who believe the same thing that I do, especially about something as important as my faith, right? So then it becomes less important about, okay, what did this church offer me? And it's more important about, okay, what does this church think, right? Because if this church thinks what I think, this may be a church that I should go to. It may not be the church, but that's what matters.
Yeah.
Because if they don't believe in Jesus, then it's not a place worth going to.
Yeah.
If they don't believe in the gospel, it's not a place worth going to. But if that's what they think, that's what they believe, then we need to start, you know, really considering, you know, is this the place for me? Right? And to me, because your text, Kayla, is a lot like Will's with possessions. And, you know, no one really thought what was theirs was theirs. It was everybody's.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so I feel like Acts is full of church membership.
Well, of course.
Personally. But again, these are just really good places that bring up everything that we know today about church.
Right. So before we move on to kind of the next part of the episode, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, the CSB Bible.
Okay, do we really need to wait 30 seconds?
No, you're good. I was waiting on you to start.
Because I
You
feel like
just
that's
start.
what you. I feel like that's what you did.
You're good.
Okay, so I guess the first question I want to ask is,
Wait. I need like 5 seconds in between when you say, "Oh, okay, let's just." So okay, so
so is church membership really an issue in our culture? And if you think so, tell me why. And if you don't, tell me why.
I feel like it is because I don't feel like we have the right view of church membership.
Okay.
Because I feel like to some people, church membership is what it says in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
You're actively participating and serving in your church. You're in the community. Like, I don't know. And then for other people, I feel like it's just on paper that you're a member of a church, but you come every now and then.
Right.
So I feel like it's easy to mistake. Well, like in our society, people mistake those two.
Right.
Like, we don't know how to define church membership biblically.
Right. Because we end up falling into, okay, this is like my gym membership.
Yeah.
Or this is like my country club membership.
Like, oh, let me check it off my list like I'm a member of a church now.
Yeah, my name is on that Sunday school roll, whether I show up or not. So
right,
I'm a member of this church. What about you, Will?
right. Is it dangerous? Is it something that we're not doing?
Well, is it an issue?
Is it an issue? Yeah, I think it's definitely, and I think probably the main. I feel like the main cause of the issue, and like I mentioned earlier, is I don't know that church membership is being talked about. You know, kind of like you just mentioned as well. Is that I just don't know that people are talking about church membership. I don't know that it's not a big deal to people. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't. Why do I need to do this? Why just.
Right.
It doesn't matter. And so I think it is an issue.
Well, I think the most we talk about it is, hey, maybe you're looking for a new church.
Yeah.
Become a member of this church. Yeah.
Well, and two, I feel like the church kind of fails in a way because once somebody becomes a member and they just stop coming, you just don't do anything about it.
Well,
and then the pastor's held accountable for that, right? Isn't that what we just read? Now they're a part of your flock.
Yeah.
So now you're sort of held accountable for those people.
We're not reaching out to them and like making sure, they're, well, not being ugly, but, just checking on them and like making sure that they're coming to church.
Because it comes out of concern, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Right.
Well, I think that's where the church communication breaks down because let's take First Baptist for an example, right? No church is perfect, but let's take the church that I love as an example. So let's say that, wow. So let's say that someone joins our church, they get put on a Sunday school roll, they come for the first 3 months, and then they kind of just drop off the face of the planet. Okay. So then at that moment, like, who knows immediately that person's not coming anymore?
The Sunday school teacher.
The Sunday school teacher, right? Okay. So in that moment, I feel like, now y'all might disagree, the Sunday school teacher should reach out to that person.
No, I agree.
Because they know that person.
Yeah.
Like, the pastor can't know everybody personally.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Well, think about these big churches like the Summit Church.
I know they have thousands of people. Like, are you, like, is J.D. Greer calling everybody? No, he's not. He's not doing it. So then, like, if the Sunday school teacher's not doing it, is doing it, let's give them some credit. They're trying to reach out, but they can't. Then they give it to the deacon that's over their ministry, right? Because here at First Baptist, we have deacons that are over ministries, right? So then they get the name, they try, right? And usually you're going to get them, especially in a small community like ours. You're going to get them. You're going to find them, okay? Or you're going to find somebody that finds them, and they're going to find them. Like, it's going to hit the chain, right? And then if they can't, then I feel like the pastor should be like, hey. But I think the accountability, as far as Baptist churches go, I think the accountability is more on, are the structures in place to find these people? Because if they're not, it's not the Sunday school teacher's job to make sure that the whole Sunday school area of the church is doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? It's not the Sunday school teacher's problem.
No.
It's also not the deacon's problem if the deacons aren't set up in their proper structure, right? They're not. That's not their job. Now, if they don't have a pastor, that's one thing. But I'm assuming that they do in this moment. It's the pastor. The pastor is the authority of the church, and if he is, he has to set up these structures to find these people. That's why every year churches usually most of the time go through their roles and say, okay, who's not coming, who's moved away, or who's died, or whatever. Because we need to trim the list here, and then we get like a whole bucket full of names that we need to find out. Okay, where are these people? And again, if they're going to another church somewhere, that's it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to beg them to come back, but at least you know.
That they're in church.
Right? So it's not like you're going to get to heaven and God's like, okay, so-and-so, they never came back. Did you find out? Because you're either going to be like, yes, actually, they went to the church down the street and I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to say, yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea how the system even works. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like there's a total difference there. And I agree with what y'all said about this question because I feel like it is an issue. Especially in our culture here in Pierce County, I feel like it's more political in where we choose to go to church. So, for example, if I were to go to First Baptist Church, I'm making a statement, right? This is who I am. This is the church that I want to be identified with, right? And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Then, like, let's say that I go to Bridge Community Church. I'm making a statement as to who I am. This is the place I want to be. Or I go to Emmanuel, okay? These are like the three churches, like the big ones. Now, there's other churches, so if you listen to this podcast and you don't go to the churches, I'm not hating on your church, okay? I'm just saying these are the big ones. These are the three big ones on Main Street, okay? This is what it is. So if you go to First Baptist, you have a different view of Bridge and Emmanuel. You just do. Like, you just do. This town's too small. You know everything about everything, right?
Yeah.
If you go to Emmanuel, you have a perspective on Bridge and First Baptist. If you go to Bridge, you have a perspective on Emmanuel and First Baptist. You know, like, you just do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we preference where we go to church based on how we view things.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go to First Baptist, in your mind, which may not be true or not, but in your mind, you probably know what I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Emmanuel, you probably know, you probably think you know what I think. If you go to Bridge, same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And so I feel like a lot of times in these small-knit communities, we're making statements based on where we go and less about, okay, is this the body? Is this the body that God really wants me to be a part of? And I would say that the majority of people are going where they're supposed to be going.
Yeah.
But I think that we're not focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes away from part of the community aspect because we're so busy going, well, I go to First Baptist.
Yeah.
Where do you go? You know, and they're like, well, I go to Bridge. And they're like, oh, well, you don't go to First Baptist or whatever. It's vice versa, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everybody's like that, but I think we get so caught up in the politics of it all and where we go and what that says about me personally than we do about, okay, this is the body that I've chosen to be committed to, and I'm going to be committed to this church, and I'm not going to get caught up in thinking about what Bridge or Emmanuel thinks about or what First Baptist thinks about because I go to Bridge or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So do you all agree with that?
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, just checking. Okay, so then my next question is, do we all? So you probably know the answer to this, but I kind of want it to be more than a yes or no answer. Do we all believe that everyone should be a member of a local church? Will, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I do, and I think we may get into this a little bit more in just a second, but I do think it's very important that you become a member of Okay, so. Actually, when you say everyone there,
I mean believers. Let's not
but there you
let's
go.
not get that specific.
Okay, good stuff.
here we
Yes,
go.
I do. Yes,
Okay.
yes. I do believe that all members should be all believers should
See,
be
this is
a
what you
member
get for trying to nitpick me.
of a
Yeah.
local church.
Yeah.
I do. Because I just think number one, it's biblical. We've seen that. You
Right.
can't. It would be really difficult for you to say that it's not biblical. It's not in there. We've obviously seen that it is. And so I think that really should be kind of key number one of why you should be. And I just don't know why you wouldn't want to be. Why would you not want to be around, right? Because we all hear those excuses of, well, everyone's a hypocrite. And,
Everyone knows my business. They're all up in my face.
number one, you're in Blackshear. So it doesn't matter where you can member at church or not.
that's
Everyone does. But for those of us, I don't know. I just don't think that's a valid enough excuse for me to be like, nope, I can't join a local church. I'm gonna sit at home and watch my service and be by myself and be okay.
I'm going to tithe online, you're
Right.
super hip. Yeah.
Right. Now, I say that because I've just in case if there's somebody who can't go to church, you can't do
Right.
There's stipulations.
There's some reasonable
right.
exceptions.
But if you're working all the time, like you're very able to go, I think you totally should.
Or if you can't walk or drive, like, okay.
Yeah,
like,
we understand.
Yeah.
I think,
you got me,
like,
right. Okay.
But if you're able, then you should.
All right, what about you, Kayla?
I feel like, but like Will said, because it's biblical.
Right.
And two, I feel like you need to have that accountability and you need to be in that community of believers. And another thing is like, that's just how you get poured into. That's how you grow. It's harder to grow on your own than it is whenever you're surrounded by other people that believe in the same thing you do.
Right.
And may know things that you don't and can help you grow in certain areas.
Well, in church membership is like, so you get the spoken word from the pulpit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you just focus on the spoken word from the pulpit, you're not gonna grow as much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're gonna stunt your growth. If you don't hear that, but you just do it on your own, you're not gonna grow. Like you're gonna grow. Let's be honest. Like the Holy Spirit through the Word of God is gonna grow you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're not gonna grow nearly as efficiently if you do it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think if you have the preaching of the Word and your own personal study that you're still stunting your own growth in a couple ways. Because if you're actively involved in a group of at least 2 or 3 or more, like you're getting poured into so much.
I feel like that's where it happens the most.
Yeah, and you're reading the same thing together.
Mm-hmm.
You're going through the same thing together and all that stuff. And I think what prevents us from doing that is our fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm afraid that if I share this with someone, then either A, they're all going to judge me and everyone in Pierce County is going to know, or B, they're not going to invite me back because I'm going to be different or whatever. But I think we can all agree, for some of our personal reactions with one another or somebody within the church, when you confess something to someone, whether it be sin or something deeply personal, like that's a grow moment, right?
Yeah.
Like that is like I'm invested now because I shared with Will my personal struggle and he accepted me for that in the Lord. Now I'm here. This is where I'm at.
Well, and that's what I heard a pastor say last week. I think it was Matt Chandler, but I heard him say that, some of his biggest moments of growth in his sanctification process, so in his process of becoming more like Christ, the biggest jumps of growth came after the biggest moments of failure.
Yes. Right?
Because after that moment, you think, well, dadgummit, I really messed up. And then you do as Eric said. You go to somebody and say, hey, I really messed this up here. This was bad. I did this. And then that's when you jump leaps because God does something through that. Like you said, now you feel, you feel accepted. Mm-hmm. You feel, and then you're going to listen to that person. You're going to follow what that person says. So they say, well, you really need to read your Bible more. You need to pray more. Well, you're going to go do that now,
right?
Because you don't want to be back where you were in that sin. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why I think church membership and even church discipline are such good things and such needed things because they're not meant for harm. They're not
right. Yeah.
They're not. When Paul writes, these things aren't meant for harm. If anything, they're meant to pull you from sin, pull you out of sin.
Back,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have such this negative view, because like I said earlier, we talk about how those people say that, everyone in that church is a hypocrite, and they're all, and then there's that cliche saying, well, we're all hypocrites, and there's truth in that. None of us are perfect, but I think that's what makes church membership and church discipline church membership so good, is that I can confess my sin to someone, and then they can look back at me and say, man, I've messed up here too. Like, I'm not perfect in this way either. And you grow together.
Yeah.
You can't do that on your own. Mm-mm. You can't confess your sin to the wall in your bedroom. It just doesn't work. They're not going to help you any.
Right.
And so I think that's why I think it's very needed, and I think it's important.
And I think people who've been going to church for a while and are ingrained church members and in the culture and all that stuff, they want that type thing. But we're so scared of that first initial step that we miss out a lot of the time. Because the majority of people that I know at First Baptist Church, they would love that kind of thing. Like if you were to walk up to them and say, hey, man, can I talk to you for a second? And they would step aside with you because I know them, and they would hear you out and go, let's meet together. Let's talk about this some more. How about you come to my group or whatever? That's what they would do. And I know that there are some situations where I'm sure someone's revealed something and then it went sour and that burned them to the church or whatever. But that's literally the exception most of the time.
Right.
Because the reality is I don't think it happens as much as it should happen.
Yeah.
So the numbers, if we were to do numbers or whatever, they would be so skewed in both directions, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's so many good people in the church that love God and want to help the church that if you were to confess your sin to someone, they would be like, you know what? This isn't a place for judgment. This is a place for grace and forgiveness and love and be everything that Jesus meant for it to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
That's hard. You're struggling through that. Let's
right.
pull,
And
let's
I'm
pull
not.
you away from
I don't want to
that.
make it light. Like I know it's not easy to walk up to somebody and go, "Hey, look, I'm a failure right
No,
now."
of course not.
You
Yeah.
know, like no one wants to do that. But at the same time, that's kind of what this is all about, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think those are the best moments. Those are the best when
Yeah.
I can look at somebody and say, you know what, I'm not doing good. You know, I'm really struggling,
yeah.
and then you just grow so much out of that.
Oh, I know. It's the best. It's the best.
And I also just to add, and then we can move on. But I think that's kind of why membership classes and the new member classes are so important. Number one, to find kind of your role in the church.
Yeah.
But also to kind of pull you either away from sin or pull you closer into the other members, right? So when we see people become new members, I do think it's important for somebody or the majority of us kind of to interact with that person and say, hey, you know, we're here for you. You know, none of us are perfect. We know you're maybe struggling with something, whatever that may be.
And you can get them plugged in.
Right.
It's just easy. It's just
Right.
easy.
So I think that kind of leads into the next two things we'll touch on, and then we'll kind of come to the end here. The next two things I pulled out of Mark Dever's 9 Marks of a Healthy Church. And so if you're curious, you want to know more other than this book talks about church biblical leadership, church discipline, the ordinances, whatever that is, that whatever you want to learn, that's what this book talks about. And so I pulled these two things out of the chapter on church membership, and I just kind of want us to discuss them real quick. And he asked 3 questions in the book. He asked, number 1, what is a church? We won't go into that. And he says, number 2, why should I join a church? So practically, other than it's biblical, why should I join a church? And I'm just going to give you his 5 things.
Okay.
And then we can kind of discuss each one of them. Some of them are obvious, so we'll move past them. So number 1, and this one was interesting to me. He said, number 1, to assure ourselves. So what you're doing when you join a church is you're asking, you know, your brothers and sisters in Christ to keep you accountable. So he's saying that we should, what we're doing is we're assuring ourselves of our salvation, right? Not that we're fooling ourselves thinking that, okay, well, I'm saved, but I don't ever go to church. You're not being fed by the word. You're not doing things. So number 1 is to assure ourselves that we are saved. Number 2 is to evangelize the world, right? I think this one's kind of obvious. Great Commission, go to the ends of the earth. This is why you should join to help in this effort to do this. Number 3, this one was also interesting, to expose false gospels, right? So hopefully you're joining a biblically based, biblically saturated church that believes in the true gospel of Christ, and that really all we bring to our salvation is our sins and you know the gospel. So we're getting rid of the false ones. You're joining a church to see what the true gospel is, the full gospel. Number 4, to edify the church, right? So you're building up other believers. I think of all the command, the one another commands, right? Love one another, care for one another. All those one another commands, I think that kind of would fall in this category to kind of edify the church, to build up the church. And then finally, number 5, to glorify God. I think that one's probably the most important. Is that you've seen that as biblical. You know that joining a church and to ultimately bring glory to God. So what do you kind of think of those 5? Anything that stands out to you? Or
So I've got 2.
Go ahead.
I know you're shocked by that. Number 3, the exposed false gospels. Like I've never thought about it that way before. But, you know, for instance, and I'm not going to call out any religion specifically, but I could see someone getting saved at a church because they hear the gospel and then they go to a class or the new membership class or whatever, and they tell you like, hey, you're going to have your own planet someday. You're like, okay, time to get out of here.
Right.
You know, like that's like, that's when you're like, you know, I'm saved, but this is insane. So I'm going to get out of here. That's kind of, I like that. Like I've never really thought about it that way because, you know, you could hear something true, right? Like Will, you and I have had this discussion. You could hear something true from an unreliable source, but it's still the truth, right? So you could hear the gospel, get saved, and then figure out that you're, you know, on a planet, and you're like, okay, that wasn't in the deal.
Yeah.
And then you find something else. So I like that. And I think what I like more is the edifying of the church. So when you said that, I thought about our college group that meets on Tuesday nights. In a couple of, I can't remember when it was because my brain is terrible, but a couple of nights ago, I remember I was talking to a couple of guys for like an hour. Literally, it was an hour. Just about God and what he's doing and how suffering works and can you lose your salvation, all these different things. And that's what I love to do, so that's not hard. But that's what I wanted. Those are the conversations that I want to have. This is what I want to do. But in my own home with 2 people that are 10 years younger than me, I'm having this spiritual conversation about all these things about God and who he is and how great he is and how great Jesus is and all this stuff through these theological conversations, these practical application type things. And you're not thinking about that in the moment, that you're edifying the church. Like you are refining it, right? You are molding it into what God wants it to be.
Yeah.
And God is using you in that moment to do those things. And I feel like we forget that. And I hope that's literally what this podcast is.
Right.
I really do. I love that we do it. It's been a dream of mine to do a podcast, but if it's not refining the way that we think and challenging the ways that we think about certain issues, what good is it? And so I think not in a puff myself up kind of way. We shouldn't take it that way, like, oh, look what I'm doing or whatever. Like that's not what you should do. But every time you get done with a conversation that builds somebody else up, we need to remind ourselves that we are being part of a local church by edifying the people. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Am I just kind of
I agree.
making no sense? Okay. Those are the two that I really like. Obviously, I like them all,
Yeah.
glorifying God, all about that.
Yeah, that's
all about
great.
that noise,
Right.
But those are the two that really jumped out to me. What
Right.
about you, Kayla?
I like them all, but the one that I really like, which you mentioned too, is the revealing of false gospels. Because I feel like even for the most biblically grounded people, it's easy to hear something and think, oh, that sounds really good. And just drift towards that. But if you're around a bunch of believers that are biblically sound and have good theology, then they're going to correct you in that and not let you stray and believe in things that aren't biblical or think a way that's not biblical.
Right. Because without the church, you just kind of wander.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Kind of keeps you on the right path.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So we talked about membership being biblical. We talked about why else we should go. So now let's kind of focus very quickly on the application portion of the episode, I guess you could say. So what does it mean? Okay, actually, let's start here. Eric, what do I want to be a member. I'm not a member. What do I do?
But I think you need to. So, okay.
I know it depends on the church.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying. I think that you got to approach the leadership of the church to do that kind of thing. Now, through the Baptist church, you have to, there's an altar call or whatever,
right?
And the person walks down, they sign a card, or whatever. But I think that's just the first step in becoming a member of a church. Like, that's not the end. Like, Christianity is full of these things that feel like the end, but they're actually the beginning.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you really want to become a member of local church, you obviously have to contact leadership in some way. You need to be, I feel like it's important to be introduced to the church. Like, this is who this is who their family are. They want to become a member of the church. Not to embarrass anybody or just to make it known, but to tell those people. So when you see them in Walls later on this afternoon, you can go, as a church member, you can go, hey, you just joined our church. My name's so-and-so. Maybe our kids go to school together, blah, 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 blah. And it goes on and on, and on and on.
Right. And to me, it's ironic that we look at something like that as kind of scary, right? Because
right.
in reality, we're supposed to be celebrating over,
right?
Wow, this person wants to become one of us, become a member of our church.
Yeah.
We should be celebrating over that, not...
Well, and I hate that it's become this thing that we put on the end of our service, Like,
right.
I feel like we don't have time to celebrate it.
Right.
And again, I don't know that there's anywhere else to put it. Let me just be clear about that.
Right.
It's like baptism. Where do you put it? It's
Yeah.
a great thing. It's like, oh, this person's life is completely changed, but, what's the next song?
Well,
that's kind of what our brain is doing,
See, I liked yesterday morning in church how Brother Bill kind of made a comment about that, how he feels like so it can be easy to tag it on to the end. So he took a longer period of time. I don't know, just making more of a note of it, not just some added thing.
And I like, because here at First Baptist, if you join the church, Brother Bill takes you to the back door. Everybody shakes your hand, gets to know you or whatever. But there's got to be something deeper than that, right? Like, that can't be where it stops.
Right.
Because if that's where it stops, I don't know that we're doing church membership properly.
Right. Well, Deborah gives us 5 things. We can discuss these and then we'll be done. What does it mean to be a member? So practically what you're doing as a member. So number 1, and this one very obvious now, but attend services regularly. Right? Hebrews 10:25 tells us that don't forsake the assembling body. So the first thing you should do as a member is not just give up, not just leave, not just think, okay, I'm a member now, it doesn't matter, but attend services regularly. Number 2, attend communion particularly. So Eric, tell us just very quickly, kind of a 1-2 minute Why is that important? Why is communion important for a member?
Okay, so earlier we talked about the things called ordinances.
Right.
Right? Like this is a big word, ordinances, right? So in our ordinances, what we do is we do communion and we do baptism. That's what we do. As a church, that's what we do.
Right.
So the Last Supper with Jesus and the disciples, he says, hey, you're going to do this in remembrance of me. So one, Jesus commands us to do it.
Right.
Do this in remembrance of me. Not if you feel like it, or every once in a while if you're feeling it. Like, no, that's not Jesus' attitude. Jesus is saying, when you remember me, do this. Okay, so it's commanded of us to do. So when you take the Lord's Supper, basically you get bread and you get the grape juice. That's the wine, right? And so like I just keep wanting to make wine jokes.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get those things and they represent the body and the blood of Jesus, right? And you remember it, you pray over it, you read scripture, you do what you do, right? You're like, this is what I'm going to do. But what we miss a lot of times is that we do it together. So it's not just a vertical thing, like I'm doing this in remembrance of you, Jesus. This is all about you. I commit my life to you, blah, blah, blah. It's not just that, but it's a horizontal thing. Like when we're all three of us are in the church, it's like I'm taking communion with Kayla and Will and Julia and my students and Brother Bill and like we're doing it together. And I feel like a lot of times we're so focused on the meaning of it, like why are we doing this, that we miss this corporate element of it, which I think is super important when it comes to church membership because it makes you feel like you're part of it. Like this is what you're doing. And again, it's probably a little like if I had to give it a percentage, it's probably leaning a little bit more on the meaning than it is the group effort. But I don't know that you can have one or the other.
Right.
Like that's why I kind of have a strong stance on communion. Like I don't think you should be taking communion by yourself in your house, like in your basement. Like that's probably not what you should be doing because that's not biblical communion.
Right.
And people have gotten sick messing up communion. I'm not going to go into that, but they have, like it's in the Bible. So communion is a serious thing that should be done corporately in the remembrance of Jesus with church members. That's what you should do. And we can get into the whole.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
We're not going to get into the should you be a member of the church and all that stuff. Like
so,
we can get into that later.
So do that, attend communion. And then number 3, attend members meetings consistently. So I think Dever's more talking, he's not talking about like your Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night services. He's more specifically talking about, I think, meetings of, okay, we're going to build a building. What is this going to look like? Okay, this is kind of the future of the church. This is what, we're going to start this new ministry. What does this look like? Or this is more of kind of the logistics of a church. But because you're a member, you're a part of that. You technically have some sort of a say in that, and so you should attend those meetings. And then finally, the last two, number 4, pray regularly. So pray, 1 Thessalonians does us to pray constantly, pray without ceasing. I like how he said, and I've heard it constantly actually the past couple of weeks, about praying over a membership directory. So you're praying for the other members that you see on this page, right? I'm praying for this person, this person, this person. And then finally, give regularly. So you're giving to that local body that's using that money to do whatever they feel needed to do.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of the 5 things, practically speaking, of, okay, what does it mean now? I'm a member. What do I do?
Right. Can I comment on
Yeah,
some
go
of
ahead.
this? Okay, great. So the first one you said was attend regularly, right?
Yep.
Okay, so does that mean like as long as I give up 51% of my Sundays that I'm in the clear? Like,
No, I don't think so.
okay, just checking.
No.
Because I feel like that's how we think.
Right.
Like, okay, so let me do the math. If I have this many Sundays and I do this and that, okay, 51% and I'm good. Like I feel like that's kind of the way our brain works. When I don't know that God is looking for a percentage
Right.
from
Yeah.
you.
I think it's more of you on Sunday mornings. It's rare for you not to. Be
Yeah,
there.
it's probably the vast majority.
Right.
Now there's conditions, right? Like,
Right.
Okay, so if my family passes away, somebody in my family, I'm going to go to Tennessee and I'm going to attend that funeral, and I might miss a Sunday, right? God's not going to strike me dead for doing that.
Right.
Or let's say I want to go to a football game on a Saturday, right? But I only do it once or twice like in a year.
Right.
Then okay, like I get that.
Because I think it's dangerous when it gets to the point where somebody's just like, oh, so and so's not there, instead of, well, wait a minute, why is so and so not there?
Yeah.
I think it gets a little dangerous when people are just like, oh, he's not here again.
Well,
Okay.
and the research shows that most church members show up 2 of the 4 Sundays and none of the 4 Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
right? Like obviously it's not 0%, right? That show
Right.
on Wednesdays, but it's such a small percentage that they go
Might
with.
as well.
It's about
Yeah.
0. So there's that one that I like. And again, it's not legalistic. And I feel like we've talked about church membership a lot this past, as far as like attending church,
Yeah.
the past couple of episodes. But anyway, I like that one. And then I was going to talk about another one, and then you said give regularly. I wasn't expecting that one. Because, and I can't remember if I was talking to either one of you about this. It may not have been either of you. I don't remember. But I remember I was talking to someone about tithing. I can't remember who I was talking to. But in that conversation, I said something that Baptists cringe about. I said, I don't see tithing as necessary. Like, I just don't see it as something that's, you have to give 10%. And if you don't, like, the devil is going to come for you. You know what I mean? Because in the New Testament, it's not a concept. There's no concept of tithing. The word tithe isn't in it, nothing. Like, it's not there. But what is there is, I think, something greater than tithing. So now I completely made all the Baptists mad, and now I brought them back in. Okay, so I believe in something called gracious giving. Like, I believe that you should give graciously. Like, this is how much I'm going to give, not based off a number, not based how much I made this month, but this is how much that I'm going to give back to God in this moment. Okay, that's how I feel. That's my conviction.
Well, I wonder if, and you may be about to go into this, but I wonder if giving there could be a little bit more than money.
I think it is.
Giving your time, giving your,
I think
I think it's specific. I mean, it probably has a lot to do with money, financial wise, but I think you could also sort of think of it in.
Right. And I think we need to primarily think of it as money.
Yeah.
Because money's such a big deal. It's always been a big deal. Like, what we use as currency has been a big deal since the beginning of time. Like, whether I paid you in a goat or I paid you in $25,
right.
Like, I was paying you with something.
Yeah.
Right? But I also think that's a good point, though. How much of your time are you giving?
Mm-hmm.
And do you view your time as graciously giving of your time? Because the reality is like, I could sit at home and watch a whole show 2 or 3 nights in a row, or I could do something for my church. And again, I know people are probably thinking, well, you're a pastor and you want people to volunteer and blah, blah, blah. Like, I get that, right? Like, of course the pastor thinks I should give money because that's how he gets paid. Or, of course, he wants people to come give up their time because he can't do it all himself, so he's trying to get people. And all of those things are true. All those things are true. Like, if you didn't give, I wouldn't get paid, right? I'm not paid by the government. I'm certainly not making tents. Like that's how I get paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do it by myself. I just can't. But at the same time, I'm looking at it solely from a biblical worldview. Like, I'm not looking at it from a business perspective.
Right. Well, I think, and that's where it turns legalistic, is when you get past, when that word gracious is no longer there, I think now you're getting into the realm of, well, I just have to do it.
Well,
so
and we've heard in our own community of people that don't give or whatever, or they're not giving up to snuff, and they'll get called out for it, right?
Right.
Like, we've heard of that. Where people are like, hey, man, like, you've been giving 10% for a while, and you're only giving 8% the past couple months. What are you doing with your life? And my answer would be, well, if I'm graciously giving 8%, I'm giving 8%.
Yeah.
But if I'm graciously giving 25%, I'm giving that 25%.
Yeah.
Right? And of all churches that I feel like give graciously, it's our church. Like First Baptist Church.
Right.
Like, we make a ridiculous amount of money at this church for the size and the members that go to this church.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, we give more money. Like, we give $50,000 to Lottie Moon. Is that what we did?
Yeah.
Something like that this past year.
Yeah.
And the church that I came from, that's got 1,500 members, gave like $2,000. Right? Like, just keep that in perspective.
Right.
Like, our church is a very giving church. But in those things, because I was going to talk about members and meetings and all that junk, but giving regularly is, I think, is super important. What about you, Kayla? What did you think about some of these?
Well, the last one we just talked about, like giving we say generously, but I like that because I feel like if you're not being generous and there's not joy in your heart about giving that, then why are you even doing it? Like, what's your point?
Mm-hmm.
It's literally just for show, I'm sure. If you're not.
Is it worship when you give?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's
And I like all of was it 5 that you listed?
Mm-hmm.
5 of the points that you listed, but I do feel like it's easy for us to take all of those lightly and make them routine.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, we're not being genuine and authentic about all 5 of those things. So I feel like we do them, but we might not be doing them in the sense that we need to be doing them in.
Yeah. I also want to give a shout out to the Praying for the Directory. Like that's a
Like
Oh
that.
yeah, that was
that's an
neat.
interesting that's an
Yeah.
interesting concept.
I like that.
And I'm sure that like people pray for church members and stuff. Like they do that. I actively pray for the people I interact with, but like the whole directory, like that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But now that sounds like a lot of work, but just because it's a lot of work doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
You know.
No.
So thank you for listening to the Pastor and Intern podcast. We want to thank our church because without you we couldn't do this. And we also want to thank all of our listeners. Thank you so much for all of your support.
We just want to invite you to go check out all of our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and please go subscribe to our podcast on anywhere podcasts can be found.
Next week, we'll be talking about graduation. More specifically, what does it mean to graduate? We are for the Word, for the truth, and for the church. Thanks again for listening to the Pastor and Intern.